Now, in order to become competitive, which meant that I intended to win my age group, no longer just participate, I wanted to win. So I went out and I bought some speed, because that's how I learned to go fast. Instead of riding a regular bike, I bought this little baby and I bought these wheels to go with it. Set me back a little bit of money, but I figured it'll make me way, way faster. And it did. I don't know if it was the placebo effect, or if it's because the bike was so light, or I just felt better riding it because it looked so fast, but I managed to get a little bit faster. But the most important thing was, I picked my races a little more intelligently. Instead of going in the big races where there were people who could beat me, I started going in the small races, like Wetaskiwin. Went in the Wetaskiwin race first. I was the only guy in my age group, but I was still first. So I was able to walk around with a gold medal. And as I trained, I started getting a little smarter. I realized that being healthy and training on a regular basis worked better than doing nothing for a couple of months and getting slow and getting lazy and then having to train hard to get back in shape. That just didn't work as well. So I started eating better, I started sleeping better, I started paying more attention to what I was doing in my spare time, still had the occasional beer. So it was everything in moderation, including the moderation. And I ended up getting faster and faster and faster, but eventually I hit a plateau and realized at that point, I'm not going to get faster, but attrition started wiping out my competition. Because I kept training, the other people that used to beat me, who had stopped training, couldn't beat me anymore. And I started to rise higher and higher and higher in the standings. Now, by the time I got to 2008, I was probably in my peak condition, and I qualified as an age group athlete for the Canadian national triathlon team. And I was scheduled to race in Vancouver in 2008 in the World Championships. Lost sense of what I was doing and decided, no, I have to train really, really hard. Ended up injuring myself, so I wasn't able to actually participate in the race, which turned out okay because they have to cancel the swimming part because of the weather conditions. We were supposed to swim in the ocean. After that, I realized, you know what, I could qualify for these teams, but if I train too hard, I end up injured, I'm not going to be able to do what I'd like to do. Because after the injury, it took me 2 years to get back to where I had been before. So again, a little change in the mindset. I'm going to participate again. I'm not going to worry about beating anybody anymore. Now by this time, we're to about 2010. And there was a rather huge event that happened in 2010. The Olympics were going to happen in Vancouver. And as part of the Olympics, there was going to be the torch relay. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I got to carry the torch at the Olympic relay? So there were a few ways you could go about doing it. You could be an elite athlete and they would actually come to you and ask you to carry the torch. But I was certainly not an elite athlete, so that wasn't going to happen. Or you could apply to carry the torch. And part of the application process was, tell us why you should get to carry the torch. So I explained about triathlon stuff and how I had done triathlons. And I knew that wouldn't be enough. Just because I did triathlons doesn't mean I'll get to carry the torch. But I also talked to them about teaching school, because I was a school teacher. And what I would do is I would take my bike to school and I'd leave my bike at the front of the classroom and I wouldn't talk about it. I'd wait for the students to come and ask me about it. These were junior high students, grade 8, grade 9, who really didn't want to do much of anything, like most grade 8, grade 9s, 14, 15-year-olds. But they would be very curious because it was a very fancy looking bike. So they would ask questions and I'd start to talk to them about setting goals, being healthy, taking part, and eventually, at some of these races I would go to, I would see my students and ex-students participating in these races. So I told the Olympic relay people for the torch that I would set an excellent example, and I would take my torch and I would talk to various groups about being healthy and living a healthy lifestyle. And much to my surprise, I actually got a letter in the mail, registered letter saying, "You've been chosen to carry the torch." So on January 16th, I think it was the 16th, 2010, I drove down to Two Hills, Alberta, because that's where I had to go to carry my torch. And in minus 25-degree weather, I got to carry the torch. And it was one of the most spectacular things ever. You're standing on the side, and you're waiting as the previous person is running to you, and you have your torch up in the air, and when they light the torch, it's just the most amazing experience in the world. You run to the next person, you light their torch, and you're pretty well done. Except that where I had to light the torch was right at the community center. So myself and the other fellow who had a torch ended up holding our torches up while everyone sang "O Canada." The torch got heavy, but that was all right because it was quite a special experience.